The weight you're carrying right now, the heaviness in your chest, the sleepless nights, the tears that have fallen, they mean something. They're not random. They're not punishment without purpose. What you're experiencing is a test, and I'm here to tell you something that might shift your entire perspective. Your test is about to end. Not tomorrow, not necessarily next week, but the signs are already appearing around you. You just need to recognize them. Let me be direct with you. Life doesn't work the way most people think it does. We're taught to expect comfort, stability, and ease. But that's not how this world operates. And frankly, that's not how growth happens. The Creator of all things has designed this life as a trial, a test that refines us, shapes us, and ultimately prepares us for something greater. And here's what most people miss when a test is ending. There are signs, clear, unmistakable signs. If you're paying attention, you'll see them. If you're aware, you'll recognize the shift happening in your life right now. I want you to understand something fundamental before we go further. Your test isn't punishment. It's an opportunity. It's the Creator's way of saying, I believe in you. I believe you're strong enough for this. I believe you can emerge from this, not just intact, but transformed. That's what a test really is. It's a vote of confidence from the one who knows all things. So when I tell you that your test is ending, I'm also telling you that you've already proven yourself worthy of this moment. When you're in the midst of a test, everything feels clouded. Your vision is obscured. You can't see 3 feet in front of you. The path ahead looks impossible. Questions flood your mind constantly. Why is this happening? When will it end? What did I do to deserve this? Am I going to make it through? These are the questions of someone still deep in the test. But here's the first sign that your test is ending. Clarity begins to emerge from the chaos. Think about a time when you were in a dark room. At first you couldn't see anything. Everything was pitch black. But as your eyes adjusted, shapes began to appear. Shadows became forms. What was once completely incomprehensible started to make sense. That's exactly what happens when a test is about to end. The fog begins to lift. You start seeing things you couldn't see before. You start understanding things that previously made no sense. This clarity doesn't mean everything becomes perfect. It doesn't mean all your problems disappear. It means you start to see why things happened the way they did. You begin to understand the lessons hidden within your struggle. You realize that what seemed like a terrible coincidence was actually a divine intervention. What felt like a cruel twist of fate was actually a merciful redirection. The same events, the same circumstances, but now you're seeing them through a different lens. And this is crucial. This clarity often comes with a sense of peace that doesn't match your circumstances. You might still be dealing with difficulties, but you're no longer desperately searching for answers in the dark. You've found a light, even if it's a small one. You can see the ground beneath your feet. You can see the direction you need to move. That peace, that sense of, okay, I understand now, is one of the most powerful signs that your test is concluding. Many people spend years, even decades, in their test without ever reaching this clarity. They remain confused, angry, and bitter because they never see the purpose behind their pain. But you're different. You're reading this because somewhere inside you, something is awakening. Something is telling you that there's more to understand here. That clarity is breaking through, and it's the first indicator that your test is coming to an end. Think about what clarity you've already gained. Have you learned something about yourself that you didn't know before? Have you discovered a strength you didn't know you possessed? Have you understood a pattern in your life that finally makes sense? These are all signs of emerging clarity. Write them down, acknowledge them, because acknowledging this first sign reinforces it and opens the door for the remaining signs to appear. The Creator says in the Quran that He never burdens a soul with more than it can bear. That's not just a comforting statement. It's a guarantee. And part of that guarantee is that He gives us the intelligence, the capacity, and the spiritual resources to understand our tests. When that understanding starts to crystallize, when the fog starts to lift and you can see the contours of your journey, you're witnessing the first sign that your test is about to end. This second sign is subtle, but it's incredibly powerful. When you're deep in a test, gratitude feels impossible. How can you be grateful when you're suffering? How can you thank the Creator when everything feels wrong? These are legitimate questions, and the fact that you're asking them means you're still in the thick of it. But here's what changes as a test approaches its end. Gratitude starts to bloom not because your circumstances have improved, but because you've changed. Gratitude in difficulty is not about ignoring the difficulty. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. True gratitude is about recognizing the good that exists alongside the bad. It's about seeing the silver linings without denying the clouds. And when you find yourself naturally not forcing it, but naturally finding things to be grateful for, even small things, even in the midst of ongoing challenges, that's a sign that something has shifted internally. Let me tell you why this matters. Gratitude is a frequency. When you operate on the frequency of gratitude, you attract and recognize things you couldn't see before. You notice blessings that were always there but invisible to you because you were too focused on what was missing. It's not magic, it's simply how human consciousness works. Our brains filter reality. They show us what we're looking for. When you're looking for problems, that's what you see. When you're looking for blessings, that's what appears. I want you to think about your current situation. Look around at what surrounds you right now. Even if you're dealing with significant hardship, there are things you can be grateful for. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's people who support you. Maybe it's a roof over your head, food in your stomach, or the ability to read and understand these words. Maybe it's the very fact that you're still trying, still searching for meaning, still looking for signs of hope. These are all worth being grateful for. But here's the deeper layer to this second sign. As your test approaches its end, gratitude becomes less about the external and more about the internal. You become grateful for the person you're becoming. You're grateful for the strength you've discovered. You're grateful for the patience you've developed. You're grateful for the compassion you now feel for others who suffer, something you might not have felt before your test. This gratitude is powerful because it's rooted in real transformation. When you find yourself saying, I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I'm grateful for what it's made me, you're experiencing a monumental shift. You're no longer seeing your test as purely negative. You're integrating it into your identity as something that has contributed to who you are. And that integration, that acceptance paired with gratitude is a clear sign that your test is moving toward its conclusion. I've seen countless people transform their entire lives simply by shifting their focus toward gratitude, not by denying their pain, but by holding their pain in one hand and their gratitude in the other hand simultaneously. That balance is where healing happens. That balance is where tests end and graduation begins. Pay attention to the moments of gratitude that arise naturally in your day. Don't dismiss them as coincidences or momentary weakness. Recognize them for what they are, evidence that your consciousness is evolving, that your test is serving its purpose, and that the end is approaching. This is where things get really interesting. When you're in the depths of a test, you're consumed by your own struggle. You don't have energy for anyone else. You're barely keeping your head above water. And the idea of reaching out to help someone else feels like a luxury you can't afford. Your entire focus is on survival, on making it through the next day, the next hour, the next moment. But as your test approaches its end, something remarkable starts to happen. You regain capacity, you have energy again, and more importantly, you have perspective. You've walked through the fire, and you understand what it feels like to burn. That understanding makes you acutely aware of the suffering of others. You see someone struggling, and instead of being annoyed by their weakness or dismissive of their pain, you feel a deep compassion because you know exactly what they're going through. This third sign is crucial because it signals that you're not just recovering, you're transcending. You're moving beyond your own test into a space where you can be a witness to the tests of others. You can offer comfort because you know what comfort feels like when you're desperate. You can offer hope because you understand what hopelessness looks like. You can offer patience because you've learned patience through your own trial. And here's the beautiful part. This doesn't drain you anymore. Earlier in your test, helping others would have felt like pouring from an empty cup. It would have felt impossible. But now, as you move towards the end of your test, helping others actually fills you up. It gives your struggle meaning. It transforms your pain into purpose. Every time you comfort someone, you're essentially saying to yourself, my test wasn't in vain. My suffering has given me the ability to reduce someone else's suffering. That's profound. That's healing. That's evidence of a test coming to completion. Pay attention to how you're showing up for people. Are you more patient? Are you less judgmental? Are you quicker to forgive? Are you more willing to listen? Are you finding that helping others is energizing rather than draining? These shifts aren't coincidences. They're signs that your internal landscape has changed, that your test has done its work, and that you're approaching the other side. But I want to be clear about something important. This third sign comes with a responsibility. As you regain strength and capacity, there's a temptation to overextend yourself. There's a pressure to prove that you're fine now by taking care of everyone around you. Don't fall into that trap. The third sign isn't just about helping others, it's about helping others without losing yourself. It's about maintaining healthy boundaries while still showing up with compassion. It's about knowing the difference between supporting someone and carrying them. The Creator doesn't expect you to sacrifice yourself on the altar of service. That's not wisdom. That's ego dressed up as nobility. True service comes from a place of wholeness. When you're whole again, you can serve without depleting. You can give without resenting. You can help without losing yourself. That's the marker of this third sign. Think about the people in your life right now. Are there ways you can show up for them? Not from a place of obligation or desperation, but from a place of genuine care and newfound capacity. When you find yourself doing this, when you find yourself naturally reaching out, naturally offering support, naturally prioritizing others' well-being alongside your own, you're witnessing the third sign of your test coming to an end. The final sign, and perhaps the most recognizable one, is the return of joy, not forced happiness, not toxic positivity that denies reality, but genuine unexpected moments of joy. Laughter that comes from your belly, not from your mind trying to convince yourself that things are fine. Smiles that arise naturally when you experience something beautiful or funny or meaningful. Peace that settles over you like a blanket, even if it's only for moments at a time. When you're deep in a test, joy feels like a betrayal. How can you laugh when you're suffering? How can you smile when your heart is breaking? These questions make sense, and they're often protective mechanisms. Your psyche is trying to stay focused on survival, and it views joy as a distraction from that mission. But as your test approaches its end, something shifts. Joy begins to break through, not because your problems are solved, but because your soul is beginning to heal. Think about the color returning to a painting. For so long, your internal world has been monochrome gray. Maybe some black, maybe white, but mostly shades of a single color. But now, colors are returning. You see a sunset and something inside you responds. You hear a piece of music and you feel moved. You witness an act of kindness and tears come to your eyes, not from pain but from genuine appreciation for beauty and goodness. These are signs of your system coming back online, of your capacity for joy being restored. This fourth sign is important because it proves something essential. Your test hasn't destroyed you. It's been hard, impossibly hard sometimes, but it hasn't broken you beyond repair. The fact that you can still feel joy, that you can still find moments of peace, that you can still appreciate beauty, these things are evidence of your resilience. They're evidence that you're not just surviving, you're coming back to life. And here's something you need to hear. You deserve this joy. You deserve these moments of peace. You've earned them through your patience, your perseverance, your willingness to keep going even when you wanted to give up. This isn't a reward you need to feel guilty about. This isn't a break you need to apologize for. This is the natural outcome of having endured, and it's a sign that your test has served its purpose. I want you to start noticing these moments. When you feel a genuine smile crossing your face, notice. When you hear yourself laugh, really laugh, listen to that sound. When peace settles over you, even for just a few minutes, absorb it, soak it in. These moments are precious, and they're becoming more frequent. They're becoming more stable. That's the fourth sign telling you your test is. Now that you know the four signs: clarity, gratitude, service, without self-sacrifice, and the return of joy, I want to talk about what comes next. Because understanding that your test is ending is important, but it's equally important to understand what your responsibility is as you move into the next chapter. When a test ends, a graduation begins. And graduation doesn't mean you never face difficulty again. It doesn't mean you've completed life and everything is smooth sailing from here on out. What it means is that you've completed this particular test. You've learned what you needed to learn. You've grown in the ways you needed to grow. And now you're ready for something different. Sometimes what comes after is a period of rest and consolidation. You take what you've learned and integrate it more deeply. You process the lessons. You heal more completely. And that's absolutely necessary. You can't run a marathon immediately after finishing another marathon. You need recovery time. If you're experiencing this, know that rest isn't laziness. It's wisdom. Other times, what comes after is an immediate transition into something new. A new test, a new challenge, a new opportunity. And yes, this can feel unfair. You might feel like asking, didn't I just finish one? Why is another one starting already? But here's the truth. The better you become at navigating tests, the more capable you become of handling what life presents. The Creator doesn't burden you beyond your capacity, and your capacity has just increased significantly through what you've endured. The most important thing to understand is that the four signs I've described don't mean your life becomes perfect. They don't mean all your problems disappear. They mean you've changed your relationship to those problems. You've integrated your test into your identity. You've extracted the lessons. You've become someone new, and that new version of you is equipped to handle whatever comes next. Here's something critical that most people don't talk about. The period after the signs appear and before the test fully concludes can be tricky. It's what I call the integration period, and it's where many people stumble even though they're almost at the finish line. You see the signs. You feel the clarity, you experience the gratitude, you help others, you laugh again, and then you think, finally it's over, my test has ended. But sometimes what happens is you experience a moment of vulnerability, a moment where you slip back into old patterns and you think, Oh no, it's not over. I was wrong. The test continues, and that's where doubt creeps in. This is crucial. The end of a test isn't a line you cross, and everything magically changes. It's more like a door you walk through. You're standing in the doorway with one foot still in the test and one foot in the new chapter. For a while, this is disorienting. You're neither fully in the old reality nor fully in the new one. You're in transition. During this transition, you'll still face old challenges. Your circumstances might not change immediately. You might still deal with the same difficulties that have plagued you. The difference is that you're dealing with them as someone who has grown, someone who has learned, someone who understands. You're the same person dealing with the same problems, but you're not the same person, if that makes sense. Don't let a slip-up convince you that the signs were false or that you were wrong about your test ending. Healing isn't linear. Growth isn't a straight path. You'll take steps forward and occasionally step back. That's normal. That's human. What matters is the overall trajectory. Are you moving forward more than you're moving backward? Are the moments of peace becoming more frequent than the moments of despair? Are you spending less time in the darkness and more time in the light? If the answer is yes, then your test is ending, even if you're still in the messy middle of the transition. I want to tell you something that might reshape how you think about all of this. The real victory isn't when the test ends. The real victory is who you've become in the process. The circumstances might change, the challenges might fade, but the person you've developed yourself into, that's permanent. That's the real prize. So many people are so focused on getting to the end that they miss the entire point of the journey. They're so desperate to be free from their test that they don't realize they're actually being freed through their test. The Creator isn't waiting until your test ends to bless you. He's blessing you right now, in the midst of it, through the opportunity to become someone greater than who you were before. Think about what you've developed. You've developed resilience. You can handle difficulty now in ways you couldn't before. You've developed compassion. You understand suffering in a way that creates empathy. You've developed wisdom. You've learned lessons through experience that you never could have learned any other way. You've developed faith, either in the Creator, in yourself, in humanity, or in all of the above. These aren't small things. These are the building blocks of a meaningful life. And here's what most people don't realize. These qualities are rare. They're not common. Most people go through life insulated from real difficulty, and it makes them fragile. They don't have resilience because they've never needed it. They don't have true compassion because they've never suffered. They don't have deep faith because they've never had it tested. But you do. You have all of these things, and they're not theoretical for you. They're real lived experience. So as your test approaches its end, I want you to feel grateful not just for the ending, but for what the test has given you. Feel grateful for the strength you've gained. Feel grateful for the wisdom you've earned. Feel grateful for the person you've become, because that person is extraordinary. That person has proven themselves through fire. That person is someone to be proud of. As you move forward from this moment, carrying with you the understanding that your test is ending and the recognition of the 4 signs in your own life, there's something you must do. You must share this understanding with others. You've walked through the darkness. You've felt lost. You've questioned everything. You've wondered if you'd make it, but you did. You're still here. You're reading this, which means you survived. You more than survived. You've grown. That matters. That's important. And there are people around you right now who are in the depth of their own tests, looking for signs of hope, looking for evidence that they'll make it through. By sharing what you've learned, by being a living testimony to the fact that tests do end, that clarity does return, that gratitude is possible even in difficulty, that joy can bloom again, you're offering them something invaluable. You're offering them proof that it's possible. You're offering them hope. And in doing this, you're completing the cycle. Your test taught you something. You integrated that learning. You used it to grow. You then use that growth to help others. That's the full circle. That's where meaning emerges from suffering. That's where your test transforms from something that happened to you into something that happened for you and for the people you'll touch with your story. I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine waking up one morning soon. It might be tomorrow, it might be next month, it might be a few months from now. The exact timeline doesn't matter. But imagine that moment when you realize, it's really over. I made it. This chapter has closed. It might not be dramatic. It might not be a sudden revelation. It might simply be a quiet knowing that settles over you. Or it might be a moment of overwhelming gratitude that brings you to your knees. Everyone's moment looks different, but it will come. The 4 signs you're already seeing, the clarity, the gratitude, the capacity to help others, the moments of joy, these are the harbingers of that moment. When it arrives, I want you to do something important. I want you to stop, to breathe, to acknowledge what you've accomplished, to recognize that you took something that felt impossible and you endured it. You didn't just survive it, you grew through it. You became someone new. You became someone stronger, wiser, kinder, more resilient. And then when you've acknowledged that, I want you to look forward, not in a desperate way, grasping for the next achievement or the next goal, but in a grounded, peaceful way. Look forward knowing that you've got this. Whatever comes next, you can handle it. You've proven it to yourself. You've walked through fire and you're still standing. You're not just standing, you're standing taller. You're standing clearer. You're standing with purpose. One final thought, and this is perhaps the most important one. Your test doesn't define you. Let me say that again. Your test does not define you. What defines you is how you respond to it. What defines you is the choices you make while you're in it. What defines you is the person you choose to become because of it. Some people go through similar tests and emerge bitter. They emerge angry. They emerge convinced that the world is unfair and that life is meaningless. Others go through identical tests and emerge wiser, kinder, more grateful. The difference isn't the test. The difference is the person and the choices they make. You're reading this, which tells me something about you. It tells me that you're choosing to look for meaning. You're choosing to find the signs. You're choosing to grow. You're choosing to see your test not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. That choice, more than anything else, is what's going to determine your future. So hold tight to that. Remember that you have agency here. You have a choice in how this story continues. You've already made so many right choices just by being here, by staying conscious, by continuing to search for understanding. Keep making those choices. Keep choosing growth. Keep choosing to find the signs. Your test is about to end. The 4 signs are already appearing. You're closer to the other side than you realize. And when you get there, you're going to look back at where you've been and understand that it was all necessary. Every painful moment, every sleepless night, every tear, every doubt. It was all part of the process of becoming who you needed to become. That's the beautiful paradox of tests. They hurt us into wholeness. They break us into becoming stronger. They confuse us until we finally understand. And when it's over, when you cross that threshold, you won't just be grateful that the test is finished. You'll be grateful that you went through it, because you'll finally see what it made of you. Hold on. The end is approaching. The signs are there. You're going to make